Phantasm.
Maximum terror.
That's your target audience, baby!
Phantasm.
And you know something? I sort of enjoyed it.
Phantasm.
Sell the metal! Sell the metal! Sell the metal! Sell the metal!
Phantasm.
Kids, this is Dr. Vincent West, Medical Doctor, FANTASM Podcast. I got the cats from Nixil on today. We're talking about their new record, From the Wound Spilled Forth Fire, which comes out August 25th, and that's on Prosthetic Records. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I guess real quick, and feel free, whichever one of you, all of you, if you like, chat about it. When did you guys start the recording process for this record?
It was at end of January we recorded, and we did it all pretty quick. Like the album recording itself was like 3 days in January, and then we mixed an additional 2 days, I think. So it was like a week or so, like 4 or 5 days in January.
Wow.
We serendipitously booked that time, maybe a good 8 weeks out. And this is before we talked about Edek or anyone. We just kind of figured, if we're going to be self-releasing again, let's get the ball rolling. And we had booked this studio time, still knowing that we needed to write at least 2, if not 3 more songs. So crunch time was a winner, and especially like leading up to the session in January, just fine-tuning everything.
It's incredible. Really, really cool record. As far as going into this, now, did you guys produce and mix and master the record? Did you guys bring in folks for that, or how did that work?
We worked with Jay Robbins in the recording studio, so he did all the recording and mixing. And then we had James Plotkin do the mastering. Take care of the mastering.
I think his studio is like Plotkin Works, I think it's called.
Excellent. It did a fantastic job. This record sounds killer.
Thank you.
I'm also very happy to tell you guys this. For what it's worth, I'm just some asshole on a podcast. I've done it for years, but you guys are the first American black metal band I think I've ever liked. So, for what that's worth
really?
to you, for an old fart that used to go watch Mayhem and other crazy shit, I really dig the band, man. It's really good. So, and again, your latest release is the first thing that I've ever heard. I really dug it. As far as like writing, did each one of you have a role in everything that you like, your contribution to the record, or was it just one of you guys, or how did that work as far as the actual songwriting?
I'd say we each have a role, but we also work really intimately together. We write everything together, but some of us will bring elements to it, certain riffs and things like that, and everything expands off of that. I think Alden and Key can say more about the contribution to the writing process.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead, Alden?
I'll start. I'll try and be quick though. For this album, I'd say like Shane and I brought a lot of the riffs, and as it worked out, Shane's riffs are more on the A side and my riffs are more on the B side of the record. But we bring that to the room, and everyone contributes equally, and everyone has valued opinions on how long something should go for, whether we should cut something out or change something, and we just feel it out in the room together.
I think in addition to the actual riffs that people bring to the table, we kind of try to dial into different themes or different emotions or sensations. And without giving away too many of our trade secrets, when we were writing Collapsing the Poles, we were really fixated on this nauseating disorientation. And we kept thinking, what does this nauseating disorientation sound like put through distorted guitars?
It's incredible. The record for me to listen, I listened to it on a pair of headphones, and I'm an album guy. Every track is just like a wall of sound. It's just, there's so much going on. I can't tell you how blown away I was listening to this, and it's not easy to get me to that point. I was like, wow, this is really good. I've listened to it twice. Yeah, thank you guys. So with Collapsing the Poles, I guess we'll just lead with that. Any other things you'd want to say about that song besides what you said?
Well, in general, the song is a treatise and a kind of an explanation of my understanding of how the spiritual work that I do is supposed to come about. Like what, the one of the main points of the work is to recognize those points of oppression that you've internalized as a human being, and that can be political, that can be social, that can be spiritual. It is in fact all of those things, and to essentially eradicate that from your life, and that's the only way you can be truly liberated and move freely, is by disacknowledging and actively destroying those attachments. So that's the main gist of the song.
It's incredible. Let's see, track 2, Enthrall.
See, you want to go through your meanings? You can just kind of cover all that.
Yeah. So the meaning of enthrall is actually an active curse, an energetic fuck you, especially to anyone that would attempt to oppress anyone else, mostly though directly toward those who espouse fascist leanings. It's meant to essentially make them not see the error of their ways, but just like get off the face of the planet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What about musically?
You guys want to cover that?
Yeah, that was a tough one for me. Shane's riffs were really cool, and that one has more of like a straightforward like groove in the first half, and I struggled for a while coming up with how to contribute and layers to put in. I mean, we figured that out eventually, and it has a really cool like syncopation part, and there's like adding, I don't add like a lot of like layers per se like to the music. Shane and I try and write riffs that complement each other but also do different things, and that one threw me for a loop, but I think it turned out really cool at the end there.
And it made sense to just kind of keep going with it and have it be more of a linear song. We returned to a couple themes in it here and there, but it was more important for us to just keep putting similar themes to sort of one right after another, rather than just do your whole verse, chorus, done thing.
Right.
And I think of all the songs on the album, it's probably one of the most traditionally black metal sounding songs, just like more aggressive, straightforward, constantly rolling.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then as far as musically, just to kind of backtrack a second, I'm sorry, but musically, what about Collapsing the Poles? Like, just anything you guys wanted to add to that musically?
That was the first song we wrote for the record.
Okay.
Right after I had joined the band in like 2021, we started like loosely working on those riffs, and that might be the one we spent the most time on, since it was like the first song. We weren't rushed at the time, and we didn't feel any pressure to like finish anything, so we spent a lot of time just feeling through it, and certainly a lot of time before we felt comfortable performing it live. But that was the first one, and we saw it through to the end, and then moved on to other ideas after that.
Yeah, it's killer. Let's see, track 3, A Door Never Closed.
The Door Never Closed is at least lyrically a difficult song to really articulate. It's essentially a a description of a very traumatic experience that I went through a couple years ago. But I see that traumatic experience, which I have to backtrack a little myself. The whole album is called From the Wound Spilled Forth Fire because generally all the themes are finding liberation and strength through the things that challenge us. And definitely A Door Never Closed is describing experiences that I had that were direct result of some spiritual magical work that I was doing. And it's at once kind of a description of the psychological and spiritual changes that I underwent, and at the same time kind of a hymn to the entity that I was working with at that point. So kind of a solemn thank you for the opportunity to experience that, as traumatic as it was. So
I think that's my favorite song. It goes back and forth between a couple of them, but that one felt like it was really special when we were writing that. So I was listening to it this morning, just at one track again, and it resonates with me a lot.
I'm really a fan of how we were able to sort of synthesize our loves of both atmosphere and aggression in that song. We try to put a little bit of all that in everything we do, but the way it unfolded for A Door Never Closed it also sort of taps into my appreciation of funeral doom and stuff like that. I think we're able to capture these real thick melodies, but also keep it very sinister sounding. And as far as timing goes, I was really interested in trying to do things that were always going to be one step behind what the listener's expectation was going to be. You're hoping to hear that riff change at the end of the measure. We're going to hold on to a note one more beat just to keep you wondering what's happening next.
Right. Yes.
So we did our best to sort of create that intersection of anticipation and sort of nervousness, I guess.
It's great. I can't say enough about this record. It's fantastic. And then let's see, track 4, the title track. What can you tell us about that?
The hard one.
Yeah. I mean, as I was saying a minute ago, lyrically, it's kind of an exposition of that idea. It's an exploration of going through these personally trying experiences and letting that build your adversarial fire, that kind of being able to walk into the world and see it differently. And personally, that to me is more of a fuck you, fuck this, I'm going to accomplish this no matter what is put in my way.
Right.
That is the gist of that song. Yeah.
I really tried to tap into kind of that concept of the beginner's mind, if you're familiar with this, in writing the drums for that song, because as much as I've been a metal fan and even been in a couple other metal bands in my life, I couldn't play the kind of metal drums that originally came to my mind for this jam. And when I thought about it, I was like, why would I want to do the most predictable thing? Why would I want to keep that hyper fast double kick shit going? You can hear that anywhere.
Right.
So I just tried to tap into, all right, free my mind of the metal expectations, which, don't get me wrong, that shit always sounds good. I always want to hear it. But when it came time to write a song, I was like, okay, I've got options here. I don't necessarily need to just do that predictable shit.
Yeah, and I can't tell you enough how just fresh this record sounds. There's so much. This is awful to say, but there's so much just garbage in our metal community, and I've never felt like I belong to a goddamn thing on this planet. So maybe there's something that you guys have tapped into with this that's reached out to me, but I really like it, to the point where a lot of metal stuff has gotten so fake where I don't even like even labeling myself with any of that, even though I'm older and I grew up in Florida and saw a lot of cool stuff growing up. But there's something with this record I think you guys have tapped into with me personally as a listener where it's spot on. And I appreciate you guys sharing with each track. It's incredible.
That means a lot, for sure. And not that, I have different feelings about trends that come and go in music. I would never say that anything is necessarily bad. And I think that in terms of production, I think you do, in the production and the mix and the way you create the sounds, I think you do what fits your vibe and your goal and what helps you get your ideas out the best, and at least in terms of the tones, I think like digital tones and drum replacement, it all had its place, and I don't begrudge anyone for using those, and we may use them in the future, we may not, but what Nixil wants to do now at the moment and may continue to do for its entire career, we'll see, but we want to capture as close as we can, in the room live, the way we sound standing next to each other, and that has its downfalls, of course, as well. But that's where we come from, and it's a little more raw and stripped down, and maybe not as flawless and pristine sounding. But right now, that's the way we feel captures the energy, the best way. And maybe that's sort of what you're alluding to. It's a little, I don't know if authentic is the right word, but it's it's certainly not doctored up in a lot of ways.
I don't even mean it I'm saying everything you guys brought to this just is so just real. I think there's a lot of just fake shit that I get handed as a podcaster to do, and there's a lot of interviews I do that are just, it's very plastic, but I feel like you guys are legit. It's just, it's really nice to speak with actual artists that actually care about their work and their writing style. And I'm very impressed with this record.
It's the biggest compliment we can get.
That is the intent behind this band, behind what we're doing. At least for me personally, is to give voice to something bigger, and that thing is so far beyond the mundane drivel that people try to present as music and art in this world right now. It's going to sound harsh compared to what Alden said, but that's who I am. I strongly dislike most American black metal. I do think that it has become this cardboard cutout of what art and spirit and the meaning of life, if there is any, should be. Music, it should be a transcendental expression, and it has just become a product and a popularity contest.
Absolutely. Amen. Because it's just, and like I said, there's something with this. When I listened to it, I was like, wow. When I was growing up, I always felt like when you go to stuff, and it's gotten to the point now where, it's really rare when I run across something like what you guys have created. So I'm very happy to talk with you about it. It's really, really incredible. Let's see, moving on. Track 5, Abyss Unto Abyss. What about that one? Lyrically and then musically, if you guys don't mind.
Lyrically, Abyss Unto Abyss is kind of similar in fashion to A Door Never Closed in that it's describing a specific personal experience that I was having during that point of writing. I actually don't remember writing the lyrics to that song. I was going through an intense state of insomnia, and a lot of what that song is about, outside of the broader esoteric concepts in it, is bringing my understanding of how you use these altered states of consciousness to make changes in the world and in yourself. So insomnia is a challenge. It fucking sucks. It sucks when you don't sleep for a week straight. But there are ways to use those challenges, which, as I've said, is the theme of the album.
I think Shane said this is his favorite one to play. So that's whatever, it's got a lot of energy. It's a little more straightforward, I think. Maybe similar to In Thrall, they're not they're not as dynamic as The Door Never Closed and From the Wound, in my opinion, but there's still a lot of changes to offer. Like I wrote the melody in the chorus, and I didn't feel comfortable with it because I didn't think it was like black metal enough. You know, it doesn't sound like it. Maybe I'm not pushing it enough, but everyone else was very, you know, they liked it, luckily, but also very supportive of trying new things. But I think that's, you know, to what you were saying a few minutes ago, like maybe, you know, our differences and our different backgrounds, our different opinions, at least in this record, mesh together to make something that wouldn't be, you know, what either one of us would have individually come up with, for sure, you know, and it all worked out really well, I think.
Yeah, you gotta, you know, take a few risks when you're not gonna just be doing the paint by number genre band. You know, when people say like, "Oh yeah, let's start a band that sounds like, you know, Mayhem mixed with Watain," and then there it is. And when you hear it, but it doesn't hit the same way.
Right.
So yeah, we're always trying to, like, if we come up with a riff, we'll be like, all right, like, that's sick. Is it a Nixil riff? Like, even if it's a killer riff, is this actually going to represent what we are trying to do here? And sometimes we have to scrap some things because it doesn't really fit the song or it doesn't really fit our band specifically. And other times we can just, like, take that riff and just sort of run it through the Nixil machine and it comes out the other end like, okay, that's the atmosphere that we wanted there, or that's the aggression that we needed. And I think this song was a really good example of sort of.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like I said, this is fabulous, this release. It's incredible. And then the final track, The Way is the Grave.
The Way is the Grave is if you can read into it enough, it's a meditation on recognizing death in everything around you, and that can sound scary to people. Death is scary to people, but in the scariest senses and in the less scary senses, death can just mean change. You know, it's something has to end for something new to begin.
Right.
But then there is also, it's important to recognize that energy in all spaces at all times, and there's some descriptions of that in there. It's also a direct hymn to my guiding entity that I work with.
Coincidentally, it was the last song we finished. It wasn't intended to be the last song on the album, but it was the last song we wrote, and it happened to fit at the end, so that worked out.
I think it's my favorite song on the album. Personally, I really enjoy experimenting and doing things that really you're not going to expect in anything, especially in black metal. And I think that this song has some of those traditional elements, but at the same time, we tried to break the way anybody is going to expect to hear a black metal song.
Right.
It's a collaborative band from our very method. This was a special track just because I was relieved that it was done on time. But we actually got with the guy who's recorded our last two albums, who, you know, obviously he's not like in the band, but I consider him like a very special part of what we do because, to my knowledge, we're the only metal band that records. So we got to have a sample track into Way is the Grave, which means a lot to me.
So as far as the cover art for From the Wound Spilled Forth Fire, what can you tell us about that?
The cover art is kind of a esoteric glyph, a representation of the description of the work. You'll see the skull and crossbones at the bottom of the meditating person, which represents exactly what I was just saying, the embracing of death's energies and constant change. You'll see many wounds and lacerations on the body of the meditating person, which expand up and outward into what is void or nothingness, which is the essential state of liberation non-attachment in all senses.
And you painted it.
And I painted it, yes.
Fabulous. Was this the first time you guys had done the? I'm sorry. Was this the first time that you had done the cover art, or have you done it on previous releases as well?
No, I did the album, the front cover art on the first album as well, and Key did the back cover art. Alden, Key, and I are visually oriented, and do a lot of the art for the releases in general. Shane also, Shane is a photographer. He contributed to the back cover of this album, which is a photograph that he took during a photo shoot, and then ended up just kind of doubling it over and found all these very interesting, esoteric symbolism in it that it was just synchronistic, and ended up being a perfect addition to the album. And Key did art for the inside cover.
Bill did such a fabulous job with this record. I can't tell you, like, everything about it. It's the entire package, all the song, the arrangements. I appreciate you sharing about the tracks, but all of you musically, and then obviously lyrically. It sounds a very personal journey, and the expression and everything that went into this. It's actual art as opposed to just some bullshit release. And I can't thank you guys enough for that, because I'm very new to the band, but I'm a fan. This is incredible. It's one of the best releases of the year, I think. Very important. You're very welcome. It's really, 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 really cool. As far as you guys have some shows coming up, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we're doing a couple out-of-town dates at the end of the month, or at the end of September. No, at the end of this month as well. I'm so all over the place right now. I'm sorry. Alden, can you talk?
Yeah. Well, you may need to remind me. I get mixed up with the dates as well. But yeah, at the end of we got a Baltimore show this Thursday with Sacramento. That's going to be awesome as shit. At Metro Gallery, and then on the 24th and 25th, I think we're in Rochester, New York. And then what is the date after Rochester? Is it Philly again? I need to pull up like a schedule.
I'm trying to look it up right now. We're hitting the road. I just don't know where.
Aurora does all of our booking, and she does a phenomenal job, and she deals with all this. So we just tell her when we're available, and she makes it happen, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It'll be Rochester, New York, and I think
It's
Nixil,
probably New Jersey.
all right. Sorry, my bad. And then in last weekend of September and into the first week of October, we have a Northeast tour going up through Ohio, New York, Maine, Connecticut, Vermont. So for the full tour dates, if people want to check out where we're ending up, it'll be all from basically Baltimore up to Maine and back for a week.
Incredible. This record is such a great release, guys. Kids, check out Nixil's From the Wound Spilled Fourth Fire. It's available August 25th. Prosthetic Records, great record label. And I can't thank you guys enough for your time today. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Rob.
Phantasm.
And you know something? I sort of enjoyed it.
Phantasm.